want to go to a boarding school?
Like I had to write a proposal and it was a lot of work, but I'm able to, for the next 3 years until I graduate, do this social entrepreneur project that I really enjoy.
Oh, for me, I'm Thai scholar and I have to repeat the 12 years at Westtown and I really like it. It's very nice place to learn. I mean the people is nice and teacher is also nice. They are all friendly to me. I am new and I feel very warm from all people here.
I came here in 7th grade from like my local public school because I wanted something different and I swam here before, like for their club team, so I knew about the school. So I came.
So what do you do outside of school? Because I know a lot of the school stuff you have here is kind of like structured, which is different from the schools in Philly. We're not as structured as far as like scheduling and waking up and going to certain things. So what do you do and have fun like outside of school? What about you ladies?
Well, I've been going here for a very long time, and like, I don't know, I've always been a day student until this year, so I've had like a lot of opportunities to go outside of school and do stuff. And I mean, I play lacrosse, so I do sports. I do play sports here as well, so it's a good mix.
Okay.
I work a lot outside of school for a restaurant in New Jersey.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's kind of like the general jobs, kind of like restaurants and like working at different clothing stores. And one thing I started kind of teaching throughout working with students is like if you're learning, especially in computer science, like if you're learning coding and you're learning about science, like you can use that as a part-time job.
I heard about like crowdfunding, like Kickstarter and startup company. Can you tell me about that? I mean, it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, so it depends on your product or service. So crowdfunding, Kickstarter, and you go a great site. So it's to raise money if you don't have money for your product. So it's better for like products that if it's like a new type of cell phone you're creating or wearable technology, and you can crowdfund. A lot of movies that are trying to be built have been on those websites. So it kind of depends on your following and if people are looking for that product. But people have raised a lot of money. A couple of my friends have raised a lot of money on those sites for their products. So once you get to the point where you're ready to sell it, then you can sell it online.
Another question, because I have to work for government after studying in US and I have to have full-time job. If that's possible to be an entrepreneur when I have full-time job?
Yeah, definitely. So depending on what you're trying to do as an entrepreneur in your job as well. You can work on your business on the weekends, you can work on it after work, and depending on your job maybe throughout the job itself, but it depends on where you work at.
What was the website you mentioned?
Fiverr, so it's
Fiverr.
yes, so 5 but then 2 R's.com. So it's a really great website. We actually just started a community partnership with them because they're trying to help like more nonprofits understand that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on like a website. So you can go to this website, say I'm only looking to spend like $100, and then they'll give you like the best people that will create like a website or like a graphic or something like that for your business. So that's a way for like you guys to like, hey, I can create this, and you're creating websites from here, the people, and on the West Coast. So it's a good way to make some extra money as well, especially if you don't want to work at a store or something like that.
I have a question just generally. Do you, like for students, do you have a sense that your families want you in the summer to do things like study for the SATs and those, or do they want you to work? Like, is there a split between like a cultural thing going on there?
They may want to say like, oh, you need to do like this prep or do this job or go into this field because they think it'll be more beneficial than something else.
Yeah, that never changes. Even my mom, and I talked about it last night, wanted me to be, because nurses are kind of the family thing. So either to be a nurse, it was never like a doctor, it was like nurse, but then she was like, oh, you should be a doctor because we was only nurses. And then like my aunt, she always worked in like customer service and admin stuff. My uncle was like real estate. My dad was like odd jobs all the time. So it was never like, oh, go run a business, because that wasn't like anything they did or even thought about themselves. So it was definitely difficult once I actually decided to do that full time. Like, oh, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur, why? That was like the question, why? Especially because of the first few years, you're struggling so much that it's like, she would send me, hey, UPS is hiring, hey, ShopRite is hiring. I was like, I'm not working. Yes, what's wrong? So it was difficult to have that conversation with her, going back and forth, and it still is. A lot of stuff that I do, my mom doesn't know. I don't really talk to her about it unless I've accomplished something big, and then I'm like, Mom, guess what? But it's still that conversation because she's so used to one job or multiple jobs. Like she was that, go to this job at night, go to this job on the weekends, go to this job during the day. So that was kind of like repetitive in our family. Like you have 2 or 3 jobs of random stuff, whoever was hiring. So it was never like a full career type of step. So I think it's always difficult when sometimes you can't go to your family because it's not what you're passionate about to do.
My mom just started she was working for Lily Poulter. She was a vice president for a while, and just recently this past summer she's starting her own business, and she and I, like, because I'm doing my independent project, like it's not exactly starting my own business, but I have to do a lot of the same stuff, so we're kind of doing it together, which I feel it's really weird. Like it feels like parents don't do that. Like I feel like you don't work with your parents on like starting a business, because parents usually are employees. Like I don't know a lot of parents who are entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really nice. It just feels weird sometimes because it feels like, huh.
So you're like learning it together.
Yeah.
That actually could be cool because like you said, there's not a lot of parents that are entrepreneurs, but I know a lot now. Like I know a lot that's coming into business with their kids and they're starting bakeries and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's still a very small number compared to employees versus entrepreneur parents. So, but yeah. Anybody else want to talk about parents? What about
So I've been teaching karate for little kids for about 4.5 years now. I've been doing karate for about nearly 8, I guess. And I guess my parents have always been really supportive of that. It's always actually been more of a pain than it has been like an easy sort of thing. It's always been like, so it's been early Saturday mornings. It's always like they've been taking me at like 6 o'clock at night from, like, they've been picking me up here and driving 40 minutes here to get me, driving 40 minutes home at 9 o'clock at night, go home. And I think that is something I always really appreciate, is that they don't care that I make barely any money on it. They don't care about the driving. They really just, I think they really do appreciate the fact that I'm just kind of doing something that they see as valuable and that I enjoy. And so they've been supportive in that aspect. I appreciate that, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
But I really don't think it's gonna be like, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be a long-term thing or like a life goal thing. And so I think they've kind of been pushing me towards like, kind of expanding my opportunities, which I don't know what I'm gonna do with yet.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, like figuring out how to do something you love and then find other stuff that you love.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like trying out different things. Like with me, I did really well in school, but I wasn't really active after school. I stayed after school past regular hours just didn't make sense to me in high school.
Yeah.
But then I also went to all-girls Catholic school. So the only thing we had was cheerleading, we had choir, and we had basketball, and that was pretty much it. So it was nothing that I was truly interested in enough to actually stay after school. But I did take like weekend like acting classes and all that other stuff, but there wasn't like computer classes. And even the computer classes that we had was typing. So it was basically teaching you how to be an admin. It wasn't like, oh, how you search for this, how you do that. It was literally teaching you how fast can you type so you can type somebody's paper up. Like that was pretty much it. So I definitely wish we had more of those classes, or that I was creative enough at that time to create my own class. So I always say this to people now, if I would have had all of these classes and stuff like that, I probably would have figured it out a lot sooner, and maybe I would have cut down on years of just randomly working at places. And that's what I said, like figuring out how to turn everything you love into part-time things now and make money with it. And then by the time you get older, you can either turn it into a business or even turn it into a business now. Don't think that way. Because it helps you figure out in long term what you want to do, and you have way more opportunities than I did when I was younger. So
That's cool.
yeah,
That's really cool.
right.
What were like the first steps?
So let's start with Prestige. So with Prestige, I was consulting first. It wasn't a business. I didn't know how to turn it into a business, so I started kind of asking people around me. I'm like, okay, I've been consulting. I have this name. At first it was like TK Productions, which is my initials. And then I said, okay, how do I turn this into an official company? So a lot of researching and, was it Google at that time? Maybe. Started kind of researching how to do that. And then I asked a friend who recommended a lawyer for me. And then we selected a name, which took a little while. And then we created the LLC for it. And then I started working with this young lady. We had worked on this project together, and I said, hey, I'm starting a business, do you want to work with me? And she was like, sure. So we went into business together. She did all the stuff that I didn't like to do, which is like admin stuff and proposals. Like, she was that part, and I was like the creative part, and sales, and finding people, finding business. We started taking trips to like New York, and at that time, I just had finished working in payroll because I had just got laid off. I had volunteered to be laid off to do Prestige Concept full time. And so I ended up laid off with a good amount of money because we had like a pension, I cashed out my 401k, we got a bonus like right before we got laid off, we got unemployment. It was like a bunch of money all at one time, which was pretty cool. Bad and cool because I ended up spending way more than I should have. So for the first couple of years of business, I pretty much funded everything. So took care of like all the bills and the travel and all of that good stuff, and we planned like a lot of events and looked for clients that I was already working with. So it was difficult at first because one, I didn't know how to truly run the business. So spent, like I said, way more money than I should have, pay for everything, instead of, trying to invest or get like a line of credit or something like that to make the money last a little bit longer. So definitely made a lot of mistakes. And then her and I separated probably like 2 years into the business because she wasn't used to not having any money and I was paying for everything. So she was like, oh, I need a job, I need to find money. So we ended up splitting. I ended up, buying her out of the business and then started doing it full time just by myself and bringing on different consultants and different people to work with us. So I guess my biggest mistakes in the beginning was not financially planning it better. Putting our money in different places that I shouldn't have. And then when she left, trying to do everything by myself. So that was just like the worst part because everything she didn't like to do, I did and vice versa. So I should have found another partner that did all the things. I tried to be the one-woman show and do everything. So it was hard to, when we landed clients, I had to do everything once we landed the client. So that was probably the biggest mistakes I made with Prestige Concepts. And then with Stimulus, we're actually doing amazing. Like, it's been about almost 2 years now, a year and a half, 2 years. And the one thing I did differently is like I found a partner that once again was the opposite of who I was as far as the operations and the admin. And, I'll put together a proposal that has too many words on it and you'll shorten it. We had, going in, we had a lawyer. Going in, we had someone that, can handle our money. Yeah, but even at that time, I think when you're young and a woman, especially, you try to be that one-stop shop for everything. So you don't ever admit when you're wrong. But when you do that, you don't admit it to yourself as much as you don't admit it to other people. So I always say that saying, fake it till you make it, right? And that's cool because you don't want to not get an opportunity or going out for the opportunity because you're too young or you're a woman or no experience. But sometimes that fake it till you make it, you forget to actually make it because you're faking it for so long. And you're not telling yourself that, Tiffany, you're not good at this, hire somebody, right? You're not good at this, find a partner. And you put that facade in front of other people that you start to do it personally. So if you can admit as early as possible, I am not good at this. I'm going to hire, I'm going to get an intern, I'm going to do whatever it is to make this business a success. And that's being humble, that's being vulnerable. And I'm still bad with that at times, but I'm better than I was when I first started business 10 years ago. And now I'm at the point where I'm okay to admit when I'm wrong or when I don't know something. If I'm in a meeting and I don't know, I'm like, explain that again, start over. Especially being okay to understand, like, if you're the CEO, the founder, or whatever, that you can say that you don't know and not feel stupid. Because sometimes you just don't know, like, you can't help that. And as long as you have a team that knows, like, you should always have a team smarter than you. And I used to think like, oh, I want to be the smart one in the room. And then I'm failing because I have people that don't know as much as I don't know. So now the people on my team, like my partner, he's married, his kids, he had 2 different companies. He's like I don't want to say 20 years, he'd be mad if I say he's that older, but he's like probably like 15 something years older than me. So he's had way more experience than me. So sometimes he knows way more than me, even though I am the CEO of the company. And I have to be okay with that, and I am okay with that. So even the people that we bring on now, it's like, you know this, and this is your lane, and this is my lane. And it doesn't take away from me running the company or owning the company to know that somebody else knows something more than me. So it's one of those things you just don't know what's going to happen. So being honest with the people that ask you, like, we don't have a set date yet, but we're working on this, sign up for this, sign up for our newsletter, sign up for our, our wait list and things of that nature, because you just don't know. And just admitting that not only to yourself, but then admitting that to your team, and especially with us, because we've gotten a lot of press in the last year. So of course the press is asking us when is stuff coming out. Our advisors are asking us when is, the product coming out. So as the CEO, you get really nervous when you're trying to make sure that you are not only leading your team, but being realistic of what the next steps are with growing your company. So finding good team members is really hard as well. Like whether it's hiring, interns, partners, customers, all of that is like a real big process.
So, I don't know, so it was 2 years ago I was doing a project with a group for my design engineering class, and we had a thing, we reached out to quite a few people who had done a lot of similar sort of thing professionally. And some of them were really very good about that and responding to emails, and some of them some of the older people didn't even give us the time of day and didn't even answer the email and didn't even bother to send us an email saying we're not going to bother giving you the time of day. And so I had this kind of passing thought as you were talking that sort of thing will happen again as a young person trying to start a business in the next couple of years. And I don't know if you have any experience with it, but how do you get people to kind of give you the time of day very early on and at a very young age? Right. Because especially with the older people, sometimes they just don't care. Right. And I've noticed that, and I don't know how to avoid that, I guess.
Well, you can't avoid it. That's one. But I've experienced it my entire career. So starting a business in your 20s, y'all look young now. Imagine what I look like at 20. I look like 15, right? So I look like the young intern of my company. So that was the hardest part, and that's why it was a lot of faking it till you make it. It was a lot of, I can do everything. It was a lot of not admitting when I was wrong type of stuff, because I had to oversell myself all the time. I had to always dress up. I had to put down a school bag and pick up a briefcase. I had to always be in heels so I can look taller and older. So I had to really work nonstop throughout my 20s to prove that. It's a little better now, quote unquote, because a lot of young people are starting businesses, raising a lot of money, developing really cool projects at a young age. So some people are not discrediting you earlier than they did when I started. But that doesn't stop. It's a little easier sometimes for guys too, because you never know how old a guy is, because they always look older. But for women, it's definitely more difficult. So I always say just work harder. You have to work harder. That's not gonna change. You just have to always be professional. You always have to kind of be on your game, know more than them, because the biggest thing is just getting in the room. If you know what you're talking about, once you get into that room, you can sell anybody anything. So the first part is getting into that room, and if that's adding advisors that are older than you, getting people to vouch for you first before you walk into that room, because I did that. I had a lot of older clients. All my clients were older. They were in corporations, so they was 20, 30 years older than me. So once I won them over, they became my advocate to get me in those rooms, and then I kept myself in those rooms because of how I sold them and because of the testimonials from them. So once you get certain products and services out, just get testimonials from those clients and have them do introductions. So once you have an introduction, you don't have to worry about selling yourself anymore because somebody else sold you first. So do that, because that's not going to change. We're all going to be young, and I'm always going to look this young. So that's not going to change. Just a baby. So that's not going to change. So I had to realize that even now, being in business as long, I still look about 25-ish, give or take. And my partner's older, so he's late 40s, almost 50. So even when we're in a meeting, they'll talk to him before they talk to me. And that's not going to change. And I had to get used to that. And I had to be okay with that because at the end of the day, whoever they're talking to, I still run this business. I still own this business. And as long as you know that, that's all that matters. Because people are going to react how they're going to react. Some are old school. Some still used to talking to the man first or talking to the older person first before they talk to you. Some people are still not used to young 18-year-old entrepreneurs. So you can't change how they grew up. You can't change how they've done business. All you have to understand is you own this business, this is your idea, and you can go from there.
The title of this session is Women as Entrepreneurs. So only women are invited to sign up, which doesn't often happen. No. I mean, no, please stay, Adrian, it's just fine. We are all here together, and that's what the title was, Women as Entrepreneurs. Okay? We're all good. And you want to say something and then ask however you want to work it, however your last session
Cool.
went. It'd be great.
So ask me anything. You heard a little bit of my spiel last night. So I want you to ask me as personal, as professional, whatever you would ask me. I know sometimes when you're in new settings, you want to stay politically correct. Ask me anything. Because being a woman in business and tech can be difficult, especially women of color, especially. So just feel free to just go as deep as you want to go, and we can just have a good conversation. Don't think you have to be formal or, anything like that. So I can start.
How do you start getting those connections and those foot in the door? Because I'm like calling and emailing, and about 50% of the time I'll get something back, and 50% I won't get anything back. So I just wanted to ask, like, how do you start contacting people, and how do you get them to like talk back, or how do you get your foot in the door?
A lot of networking. When I first started, I was the girl that showed up at every event. So going to as many events as possible, if you can, depending on what your business is, or you and your mom go together. So I did a lot of events. And as far as like LinkedIn and those type of contacting people, that's a good way because a lot of professionals use LinkedIn. So I send them, like for example, I just had an event for our company, and I was trying to get Cole and a couple of people to speak, but I didn't know anyone directly there. So I found a couple people who did a lot of research, and we found somebody's name, and I sent them a message and I said, hey, I'm having this event for my company. I would love to send you a formal invite. Can I please have your email? And normally they'll respond back. Sometimes you have to do it 2 or 3 times depending on how often they check their social media or check their LinkedIn. So then I'll get an email back, and then I'll send something formal to them. So that's kind of how I reach out. So if you can't find them on like their email, you can go through their social media, send them a private message, say, hey, I want to send something formal to you. Can I get your email? And then they're 9 out of 10, depending on what you say, they will, respond to you. So that's one. And then 2, seeing if I know somebody that has a contact to that person. And the best way to get somebody to respond to you is through a mutual contact. They normally don't say no. They normally don't ignore those messages, saying, hey, I'd like to introduce you to this young lady. Can you send her your email, send her your information, or doing like a mutual, like, hey, this is so-and-so, y'all should talk and have a conversation. So I get a lot of people to do a lot of email introductions from me. So networking, reaching out to them on LinkedIn. A lot of professionals are on LinkedIn. They use that regularly, and they know when somebody sends them a message, they want to do business with them. And getting them to send you their email, personal or professional email, send them a follow-up saying, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. I always put in the subject, reply to the LinkedIn message, following up to that message, and then whatever it is you want to talk to them about.
Would you consider being a woman of color as like another difficulty when you're trying to, especially when you're trying to enter a male-dominated business? Would that like kind of be more of like a boundary that you need to break, and how did you break it?
9 out of 10 is all men. And I've never been the normal tech person. I'm always dressed up, I'm in color, I have makeup, hair done, and all of that. Sometimes my hair is different, so like, who's that? So that's one. So being truly myself. Because sometimes I'll go to an event and I know they're going to be in like sweats. And I'm like, should I wear sweats or should I wear heels? And then I have to remember, like, Tiffany, you wear heels, you get dressed up, like, be who you are. Don't downgrade who you are to be in that room with them. So that's one. And 2, it's not necessarily breaking through, it's understanding that either I'm going to use this to my advantage or I'm going to look at it as a disadvantage. But to be that only person in that room, that means those people in those rooms are going to want to talk to me because I'm that only one. So they're going to kind of flock to you more than you have to flock to them. So that's a good thing. And then also just being able to be yourself in those rooms is difficult, but it's figuring out who you are first before you walk into that room, so you're not trying to downplay or upgrade who you are just to fit and have a conversation. Know what you know and know what you don't know, and just enjoy that conversation with them. But now all the stuff in the news with like Black Girl Magic, so now it's like a cool thing, right? So everybody's trying to speak to all the girls and learn about their culture and learn about what they're doing and investing money in us now. So use that to your advantage, because you know we've always been pretty big with our culture and the stuff that we've done, and now it's coming out in the news and now people are talking about it. So be comfortable with that, and there's no necessarily breaking through it. It's just understanding that it's always going to kind of be a fight and struggle sometimes, but use that to your advantage versus a disadvantage.
Tiffany, could you maybe give an example of both, like a specific time when you kind of you had a situation where you went in and it was a challenge and you were in heels and early, and then maybe one more recent, very specific example of how it's worked to your advantage having this new awareness in the public mind?
Cool. So when I first started in business in general, I would just go and, like when I first started doing stimulus, for example, and prior to that, I was already getting kind of press and stuff that I've done over the last 10 years. So I would walk into the room and, you know, it would be like, oh, where's your boss or where's your CEO type of thing. And as I'm selling what we're working on, the bigger thing that men do, they compare you to other women or other men. Oh, isn't so-and-so doing this? And like, yes, but this is what I'm doing in that aspect. So how I always kind of compete with that, or, you know, bring it back to the conversation, I would say, is just keep talking about what you're doing. Keep talking about your partners. Keep talking about what you're building. That's one. Like, if you can get yourself in those rooms, the way you stay in those rooms is about how intelligent you are, who your partners are, what you're creating. So that's how we first started with stimulus. And, oh, did you just get into technology? Is always that question of like, no, I've been in technology for 10 years. I'm just now more in the forefront than I was behind the scenes. And now when I walk into the room, they flock to me. Oh, Tiffany, I saw you in so-and-so. And before, I was ignored. So the only thing you can do is continue to be who you were the first time you walked in that room, because now they're going to come to you and they're going to say, hey, I would love to work with you, or hey, we should sit down for coffee. So you get those now, but you have to look at them and understand who's really in your corner or who's in your corner because you're now impressed and you now seem important.
Yes.
You said that you really interview there's people, and what are the most important like characteristics or like standards for you to
What to
is the right person?
what to interview?
I mean, like, I'm a little confused what I need to say or like express myself during any interviews, so or like just learn more about that.
So when I'm getting interviewed, I try to make sure that I'm not like over exaggerating what we're working on. I try to make sure I give what's happening now. I try not to give too many like future things, because sometimes you get excited and you just want to tell everything you're doing. And me as a marketer and PR person, I have to kind of like scale back and not tell too much, because press can be an amazing thing and press can be a bad thing. If if you say, oh, this product is going to be out August 1st, 2017, and then it doesn't, and then you're looking crazy. So just making sure that you give all your past experience, give your experience at what you're working on now, but then also making sure that you don't give too much to the press unless you're 100% sure that it's going to work out. Don't give like certain dates, don't give certain numbers, because people will quote you on those things. So just making sure you give enough facts that the story is interesting, people know who you are, know what you've done, what you're accomplished, and what you're about to accomplish, but not too much that they can come back to you and say, well, you said this and then it didn't happen. I get excited and I try to balance what I give to people, because once it's out there, the same thing like when you're posting something on social media, once it's out there, there's no taking it back. So just being careful what you say, but people know enough about you to be excited to learn more.
How do you express your ideas and express your opinions in a group where the majority are men, and without coming off off as too aggressive.
Yeah, I don't, not being like the bossy
Yeah,
one.
the bossy one.
Or like being like the woman who like, I don't know, like whenever, like when I'm in the group projects, like and it's like all guys, then I like take charge because I know what I'm doing. A lot of the times they'll like give me weird looks or kind of throw off, and I'm like, it's, I don't know, yeah, I kind of have the same question.
Yeah. So it depends on if you are the boss or not. So sometimes even as being the boss, you get nervous to do that because my whole team are men as well. So I have to make sure that I give my opinion. Sometimes you don't want to be that woman that is always trying to jump in. Like, okay, so there's two types of women. You have the women that's jumping in because they really have something to say and want to say it, and you have another side where you just want to be heard, and whether you're right or wrong, you just want to be heard. So you have like those two types of women. So always making sure that you're saying something because you honestly know that the situation is right, the situation is wrong, and not just saying stuff because you're the only woman in the room. Just making sure of that. But if you are the boss, be the boss. If your whole team is men, be the boss. This is my company, and assert yourself in those conversations. So for me, I let them speak. I let them say what they gotta say. Because men like to get loud, and and my voice is very like steady. I don't get too loud. Even when I'm angry, I'm just like always the same type of tone of voice. So I let them say what they have to say, and then I said, okay, to add to your point, and then I kind of wrap it around. So I let them say, go through their whole conversation, and then I always just make notes as they're talking, and then I say, okay, are you finished? And then I go around and say what I need to say, instead of, like that conversation when you're interrupting each other. So that's never a good thing, because then nobody's listening. So, and that's the same thing even when you're in a room full of women. Sometimes it's hard to like outspeak each other because everybody's speaking at the same time. So it's like taking notes on everything that they say and making sure that you're paying enough attention to the conversation, and then go around like, okay, I agree with you, I didn't agree with you, and then wrap up and make your points at the end of that, because there's a way to be assertive and not be, the angry woman or the loud woman in the room. But sometimes you may need to, depending on the situation. So don't be afraid to be that woman either, because if I'm upset about something, you're gonna know I'm upset about it. But sometimes when we do get a little emotional, I get emotional. Because when you get mad sometimes, you get that like crying madness voice. They don't go away. I don't know how to fix that as women, but sometimes I get so angry, tears, and like depending on the situation. So that doesn't really change as you get older. You just figure out a better way to control it. Yeah, so this is kind of making points, address everybody that you want to address, and then kind of wrap up your points at the end of it.
You said when you first started, you had a partner,
Mhm.
and you're both trying to figure out how to pay the bills. Now you've got people that are working for you, and at some level, they've made a bet on you and are depending on you to make sure that they have jobs.
Mhm.
And you're responsible right away. It's just you.
It's always difficult to manage teams. I'm still becoming a good manager. And then, my partner is better at managing teams, so sometimes I'll put that on him. So we'll bounce around. So sometimes I'll let, depending on what the project is, I'll let him or somebody else on the team manage what we're doing. Just as long as I'm copied on every email, I'm copied on every, text, or we're using Slack, so I'm in the conversation. So even if I'm not managing them all the time, I still know what's happening. So if I needed to jump in, I understand what's happening within that conversation. But everybody's different. Some people are great. I'm terrible at delegating because I'm always trying to just do it myself. So I'm still getting better with delegating small tasks so I can handle the big tasks, or vice versa. So it's definitely makes you, when somebody says, oh, go take a vacation, I'm like, no, I gotta make sure people are paid. Like, I gotta make sure people are, taken care of. So it's definitely difficult to manage people because you are making sure that they are paid, you're making sure their schedule is out. Sometimes my schedule will be so crazy, I forget to send my interns their schedule. They're like, am I coming out this week? I'm like, yes, great, I'll send it to you now. So just being okay and just letting them know, and anytime people start working with us, I'm like, 1 week I am organized like crazy. The next week I may not be. It really depends, because like even these last 3 weeks, I had back-to-back speaking engagements. I got 2 awards. We had a development meeting. We brought on a new advisor, and that was all in 3 weeks. And at the same time, we had 2, interns starting. We had a new developer starting. And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to balance all of this, and I have to be okay with I'm not gonna always be the best boss to you, but you're gonna have fun and you're gonna love what we do, and I'm always gonna tell you the truth.
Who or what were some of your biggest influencers when you realized that you wanted to pursue technology and or journalism?
So I mix my mentors, my TV mentors and my local mentors, because it's trying to bounce around in the different industries that I'm in. So like I'll look at Oprah because I love how she's in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. You know, she can interview somebody and then she can produce a segment. So I'm like, that's me, because I want to do that. Or like Tyra Banks, because she goes from like beauty to TV to producing to hosting. So I always loved that about her. And then in technology, it's just been women that just talk about it regularly. So there's a lot of like bloggers that I follow that talk about their importance of technology. There's a lot of like the CEO of Xerox. There's a lot of new women in tech, that like the founder of Girls Who Code and stuff like that, because she went from politics to starting a tech company. So I look at various women and kind of consolidate them into my mentor. So I look at little aspects of what they do. I'm like, okay, I want to do this part, I want to do this part, so I'm gonna bring it all together. And that's like my full mentor, is like building the main one or something. So I kind of look at different people. So there's not like one main person, because all of them do different things. And now I'm following like the Gary Vaynerchuk's of the world, and like, oh, I like him and I love the way he posts. So now I'm kind of posting like that type of CEO, and making sure people see what I do throughout the day. I'm videoing, you know, more of my days and my meetings and my speaking engagements. So I kind of look at those different people as well.
I really love, I love Tyra as well. I like a lot of people who also do like, who multitask, who know how to multitask at the same time. Michelle Obama has always been like so great for me. So yeah, just a lot of like various leaders who are able to multitask and like reach multiple different fields.
Mm-hmm.
Is definitely very nice for me.
Yeah, I'm actually starting this show, this web series online, to talk about all of that. It's called Creators Can't Be Labeled. And it focuses on people that's transitioning from a career that's completely different from what they're doing now, or people that can work in multiple brands at one time, different industries at one time. And I started the show because of just that, trying to be in multiple industries at one time and not really having many people to talk to. And a part of the reason why I'm in media is kind of like therapy for me. Like, I'm asking you questions I really want to know. Mm-hmm. So I started interviewing all these different like influencers and celebrities that focus on how do you do this? How do you do all of this at one time? Because I'm still figuring it out. So I'm like, why don't I just start a show and just ask y'all these questions? And even the people, like, I'm interviewing this lady who was a lawyer. Now she's like this fitness guru and does all this stuff for like Adidas and like Nike. So I'm like, how do you go from that to that? That's completely different. Or a basketball player that now owns a bakery. Like, how did that happen? So it's still one of those things where it's like, it's hard to do it all, but you're so excited and passionate about all of it, you don't know how to not do it all. So that's kind of what we're working on now.
So I'm not really sure if this makes sense, but like in terms of knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not good at, like when you first started off and people like didn't know you as much, like they weren't like talking to you in the rooms and stuff like that, like how did you make sure when you were going in the room, you were leaving the room, you still knew what you were good at and like what you weren't good at? Like how did that not fall apart by being intimidated by other people?
Yeah. So that's a lot of trial and error, a lot of meetings, because I'm still learning what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. Like if I'm sitting in, how I kind of learned is if somebody asked me to do something, if it took me longer than it should have, that means I didn't want to do it. Right? If somebody said to do a proposal on a project and it took me weeks to do it versus 48 hours, then I knew it wasn't for me. So that's kind of how I know when I'm in meetings. Like if I walk out of this meeting and I'm excited, I'm ready to go get it done in like 10 minutes, then that's something that I want to do, I'm passionate about, I'm excited about. But if it's something that takes me a while, maybe it's the company, maybe it's the project, if I can't like think of the idea in my head in like 20 minutes, then for me, I realize that means that it's something I'm not passionate about. Because with certain campaigns and certain projects people will tell me about, I can sit down with you in 20 minutes and create a campaign. I know this, like I'm excited. But when my lack of excitement shows, that means there's something that I need to reevaluate that I want to actually do. So kind of look at those things when you're going into a meeting or when you're about to get signed up for something. Look at your excitement level. Look at, do you think about this when you leave? Do you think about it when you wake up? And if you don't, then it may be something you don't actually want to do. Even with my first company, Prestige Concept, over years, I was like, I don't want to do these projects anymore. I was bored. It was taking me forever. I would go into the meetings. I would get phone calls from them. I'm sitting there like, why am I doing this? So I had to realize not every project is for me. Not every check is for me. And that's hard because when you're an entrepreneur, you start to like, oh, I'll take this project just to pay your bills. So I started taking a lot of projects that I wasn't passionate about, and over the years, I'm like, I can't do this because one, I'm bored. Two, I can't scale it because I'm not excited about it enough to create a longevity in it. And then two, is like, why? Life is too short to do things you don't want to do, especially when you own a company. So now in Stimulus, everything that we do and every project that I sit down on, if I can't get excited about it, I say no to it, which is hard because sometimes there's money associated with it, so you definitely think about it twice before you say no. But now I'm at the point where I'm not selling clients just to get your check. I'm selling it because I'm really passionate about what you're trying to do, and I can help you best because I'm passionate about it.
I know that you do a lot, you multitask, and for me at least, I do a lot of stuff inside of school and outside of school. So how are you kind of able to manage your time without overcommitting yourself, and how are you able to make those commitments to whatever you're a part of?
Yeah, it's definitely day by day when it comes to managing my schedule. Like I said, 1 week somebody could have asked me to speak a bunch of times throughout the week, on top of if I'm get nominated for an award and I get it, so then I'm adding that to the schedule. Or someone will send me like a random invite to an event and I gotta decide if I wanna go or not and add that to the schedule if it wasn't already a part of the schedule. So then it's balancing client stuff, it's balancing personal brand stuff, which is like speaking engagements and posting on social media and showcasing what I do in a day or a week. And then I just this year started an advisory board. I got put into this program of like connectors and keepers in Philadelphia. I got put on another advisory board for a friend of my company that I've known for years. This morning somebody just asked me to be on their board. So now I'm trying to decide on what makes more sense for my company, what makes sense for my personal brand, and if I want to do it. So I'm starting to say no more. And I definitely do a lot of speaking engagements because in the beginning it was like I have to build my resume of speaking and get comfortable enough to speak often. And now I'm like, okay, my resume is built. I don't need to say yes to everything. So now if I'm going to say yes, what is the benefit of it? If it's not monetary, is it being around kids that I love and young people that I love? And does it help my company? Can I get a potential advisor from this? Can I get a potential investor from this? Would I be on TV from this? So now it's fitting. I have to look at certain checklists before I say yes to it. And I do so much with youth. Sometimes I have to say yes all the time for that. But now I'm starting to say no to more like boards, and because that's like a full-time job in itself when you're asked to be on a board or something. So I take it day by day. Some days I wake up and I'll work on multiple things. Some days I'll wake up and I'll just work on stimulus stuff or the radio stuff the next day. So it really depends on what's more pressing, what's more important that week. And I just take it day by day. I don't try to overly structure my schedule because when I do that, my creative juices don't flow that way. So one day I can wake up and I just want to work on my radio show for the week. And I'm okay with that because every single day I'm always working so hard on everything that when I don't want to work on something, I kind of say okay to that because that means that it's just not my time to work on it right now. Because the way my brain works, when I wake up and I'm excited about something, I have to do that for the rest of the day. And if I'm not excited about it, I'll push it off to the next day. So everybody's brain is different, how they get excited, because that's how I get my stuff done. Like if I'm excited, oh, we're about to do this amazing show, then I make sure, take care of all the, the details for that day before I do anything else.
When you're first building it, how do you not let personal relationships get in the way? Like I know when you're first starting out and you're with a group of friends and you all have an idea, but then maybe one friend says something that you might not like about the idea and you don't know how to say no, but you know how you want to bring them up with you. And how do you balance that? How do you say no? How do you say yes? How do you go what you want and how do you incorporate your vision into the team?
When I'm very open boss, like I'm really friendly. I'm just like, don't call me miss and all that stuff. Like I like to have fun. I like to interact. But then sometimes when you become friends with people, they forget that you're the boss of the company, and then it becomes harder to tell them what to do because the relationship gets all loose and friendly. So then you got to scale it back. So it's hard to find that balance between being somebody's friend and being their boss and or partner. So like when I first started Prestige Concepts, I brought on a young woman. She was helping us with like events and marketing, and we became friends. So as time went on, and she wasn't doing a great job anymore because she just wasn't passionate about it. She wanted to do other things. And it was definitely difficult for me to like let her go because we was like hanging out at the same time we were working, and I was like, I need to fire her, but I didn't know how. So thankfully over time we ended up having a conversation, and she ended up taking a job somewhere else. And we kept our friendship intact, but that's difficult. So building a team with friends is really figuring out if you two can separate your friendship from business and understand when you should work together and when you shouldn't work together. So like my business partner now, him and I were friends, but we were friends in a professional setting, meaning like we didn't hang out outside of a project or an event that we went to, but we were friends that I knew his wife and his kids and all of that. But we were friends enough to start a business together, but professional enough to be able to have a conversation if something we didn't agree on something, or we had a different thought on where the company should go. So it's really finding that balance between friendship and professionalism. And it's hard because you want to hang with your friends and do business with your friends, but they're not always your best business partners, because when it's time to pay bills and it's time to do something serious, can you stop being silly for a second and be serious? So you have to be honest with yourself and them before you even sign papers, before you even start the conversation. Can we be serious? Can we write everything down? So if you don't do this, you're fired. If I don't do this, I'm fired. And if you can do that and take it seriously, y'all both put your signatures on it, then you can be friends. Even a friend of mine, like I borrowed money from him a little while ago, and I'm like, we put everything in contract, like we're friends, but if I don't pay you this money back, you have the right to sue me. So like that's the type of friendship you need. And he was like, okay, so we signed it, got it notarized, and we've been friends for 5 years, but I know I owe him this money and vice versa. So it should go into business with them. Like, oh, we can just put it on a napkin. No, we're gonna put it in here, and if you don't pay me, I will sue you. Then okay. If they say okay, then that's the person you go into business with. If they say no, then y'all just need to be friends and not do business together.
Well, I'm just thinking, theoretically, you were talking about, I guess, a business idea, and they just, maybe you're in a room full of men and they're not interested in hearing what you have to say.
Okay. Are you looking at those men to work with you on that project, or are you just in a room and you're kind of like sharing ideas?
Sharing ideas.
Okay, so that's when it kind of goes back into listening to the room first, kind of writing down what they're saying, and then when they're done, kind of going around the room and saying, adding your idea to their different ideas. Because 9 out of 10, some men, for the most part, they'll start an idea, but they never really finish it. So you can write it down and say, this is how we can execute this, this is how we can actually turn this into a reality. That gets them listening way more than just saying, oh, I don't agree with that, or you should do this. Like, hey, you said this, but if you did this or combine those two ideas, this would actually turn into something that you can execute on. So I always do that when I'm in a room and I have ideas on top of their ideas. I say, okay, I agree with you on this, but if you did this, this will make more sense. And then you get them thinking. At the end of the day, they'll give you that look like, okay, like you'll get that afterwards. So that's normally how I do that when I'm in a room full of men. Because sometimes you gotta let them shout it out for a second, and then you close it out as the woman of the room. Most men are like yelling it out, and their egos get in the way, and they're trying to like out-shout each other. So I think when you're listening to everybody, like truly listening, writing down what they're saying, adding your own ideas to it, especially when you're passionate about it, those ideas to start to flow out. And then when you can kind of like close it out and say, I agree with you, but, and just add your 2 cents to it, I think that you would be that woman that end up kind of being a project manager for all of the men in the room, because like I said, they're trying to fight against their egos and who's, you know, tough enough, big enough, who got the best idea. But women are always the more level-headed side of an idea and how to really execute it. And sometimes men forget like the fine details that women pay more attention to.
Like talking about being a woman, I think also tying back to the idea of like if you are starting a business or starting a project, how do you get taken seriously if you are younger, and how do you avoid being blown off because you're younger, and like we're all teenagers, and like sometimes if we're making an argument to someone older, it can feel as though they're not completely listening or not toning in, like they're just blowing us off because we're younger. How do you get over that?
It's always how you put your work in. Like I've always been overly professional. Like even the people that I run into now that I work with at 20, at 21, it was like, wow, you were that age. They knew because I was young, but the way I carried myself was like, oh, I thought you were older. So it's like truly being overly professional, being, you know, in that space where you're dressing the parts, you have, you know, a briefcase instead of a school bag, you have the best proposal that you can have, you're on time, you're early. It's really that type of strategic planning that I had to do to maintain and be in that room. So that's one. And then two, I always had advisors that were older than me, and they became my advocates. So they was advisors / clients. So they would, you know, write testimonials for me. They would do email intros. So when you have those people that are vouching for you, those other folks don't have a choice but to listen, because you have somebody that is quote unquote sponsoring you and inviting you and saying, I worked with her and she did X, Y, and Z and they did an amazing job. And then you have some people that are just not going to take you serious. There was some people that I work with that no matter what I did, no matter how much work I put in, they didn't feel that they needed to pay me because I was young. They always try to keep me in like an intern status, even though I was running a company. So those are the people you just have to walk away from, because no matter what you do, they're always going to look at you as a young person, because it's just how they grew up and it's how, you know, they've always done business. So you go after the people that will take you seriously, because if you look at the news and all this stuff now, you have so many young people creating these amazing ideas, raising millions of dollars. You're crazy to not pay attention to young people. You have social media stars making more than full-time people right now, more than people twice their age. So why would you not listen to them? They're obviously smart enough that they're making 6 figures on posting on social media, and it took you, what, 10, 20 years to post or to, you know, get to 6 figures, and then you got 18-year-olds making 6 figures. So you have some people that will take you seriously, and you have the people that won't. You can't do anything about the people that won't. All you can do is maintain your professionalism, making sure you have advisors and sponsors and people that will vouch for you and vouch for your work, and just understanding that know what you know what you don't know, and that's always experience. You can't put time on experience, like you have to get experience. But there's still things that you can come up with that is an amazing idea that will help you at the end.
Has there ever been a time where you just wanted to like give up and just like stop everything or reconsider stuff? And if so, like how did you overcome that to the point where you are right now?
Being an entrepreneur is so hard. It's one of those things where if you don't love what you do, you'd be like, why am I doing this? Because it's a lot of struggle. It's a lot of, you don't know when your next check is going to be here sometime, depending on your clientele, depending on your service. It can be lonely because if your friends and your family are not entrepreneurs, you really don't have many people to talk to. So I always knew at the end of the day, every time I was ready to give up, I got a new project. Every time I was ready to give up, somebody said, I want to hire you, and, you know, or somebody want to interview me for press. I'm like, oh, so now I'm going to, you know, have press I can send out to a potential client. So I kept seeing that it wasn't in the cards for me to give up, because every time I was ready to, something good happened. So it's always at those points where when stuff is really bad, light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. As soon as I started Stimulus, from working on prestige concept projects, it took off, and it was like press and cover Philadelphia Business Journal and finding a great partner, and AT&T sponsoring our events and then partnering with Microsoft, I was like, okay, maybe I'm meant to do this. So sometimes it's really, the hardest part is knowing that you would not want to do anything else but this. And kind of once your mind switches to an entrepreneur, it's hard to go back to do anything else. And once I've been doing this now for 10 years, and there's been times that even 10 years in, I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm still doing this. But then I get people that will walk up to me, like, I follow you on social media, and I'm so proud of you. And they'd be like complete strangers that have been following me literally for 10 years. And I'm like, thank you. So that's stuff that would encourage me, not even just the press and the clients, but people twice my age, 40s, 50s, like, you inspired me to quit my job. I'm like, really? You okay? Like, things are good? And then they became, a full-time entrepreneur, and I'm like, wow, I must be doing something right. So when I'm encouraging people that much to keep going, I feel bad to give up, because now, like, I have people that are following me. So I've stuck through a lot of prayer. Like, I'm really a spiritual person. Just got baptized like a few weeks ago because I wanted to like start my relationship over with God. I have great friends now that like, Tiffanie, you got this, keep going. I can talk to my family a little bit more about it now. And I have random strangers that now say, they're kind of like my side advisors that help me through when things are difficult. And I have amazing partners and clients that like, Tiffanie, you got this. So it's a little bit of balance of internal, self-motivation. And people always say lack of fear. I'm afraid all the time. I just do it anyway. So I always say, I don't think people are fearless. I feel like if you're not afraid to do it, it means you don't love it enough. So I take fear as I love it that much that I'm gonna be in fear of it, but I'm still gonna do it regardless. So I always kind of, when I got butterflies and when I'm nervous, that means I love it that much, and I'm just gonna continue to do it. So now it's, things are going well.
Yeah, as Quincy said, it's more of a thing that I want to do it like on the side.
Okay.
And to see like where it goes. Hopefully be able to be you one day. And it's my idea is more of like a social impact. It's not more like getting money. So yeah, I kind of want to help those who are like me.
There's a way to make money and help people. And I always say this, especially to nonprofits. Yes, let's help people. Yes, let's make sure you're helping your community. But you can't do that if you're on the street or your lights are turned off. So make sure that you add business scalability to whatever you do socially, whatever you do community impact. So even us as a social impact company, because we are becoming a B Corp, which is a for-profit company that has like a community nonprofit aspect to it, and we will have a nonprofit arm to us. But our first thing is to make money, because if we're not making money, we can't make money. So don't think because you're in social entrepreneurship that you need to be poor, you need to, to save the world and just be shopping at thrift stores or something like that. Like, I don't look at it in that way. So understand that to help people make money, you need to be okay. What is that? Put your life jacket on before you put somebody else's on? I look at that in business as well. So find a way to scale, find a way to make money, because the best way to help people is when you are good yourself.
I'm doing like the financial developing now for the next year, because I'll be all incorporated in January.
Cool.
And so yeah, money's a struggle figuring out how to get partners, but I just had my first like organization partner endorse my legislation last week.
Cool. The one way I've always got in my partners, corporate especially, I do two things. I go to events that those sponsors are sponsoring. So if I want to meet at AT&T, if I want to meet a Comcast, I go to an event that they're sponsoring. Because a representative will be there, either their top person, depending on the company, or a representative that can give me their top person's information. So I would go to an event, like, obviously, like, if they're funding something having to do with sex education or healthcare in general, I'll make sure I go, and, depending on what the age range is, I'll just bring a person that's older with me if I needed to. And then, so that's one. Two, to bring them to you, you're planning an event that you invite them to speak on at a panel or be the keynote or something like that. Because most people do not say no to free press, and they don't say no to speaking engagements. So if they just come, put their information out there, the head of whoever, head of Planned Parenthood, whoever it is, if you invite them to speak at your event, that's how you open the door to them becoming a partner with you. So I always do those two things. So like, for example, I wanted to work with Coca-Cola. I didn't know anybody from Coca-Cola. I sent them a LinkedIn message saying, hey, I want to invite you to this event. Can I get an email to send it? They sent it back. 2 weeks later, had somebody, the head of, I think head of brand or something like that, was speaking at our event. They gave us all this product, Coca-Cola's, vitamin board everywhere, and now we're in talks for them to, you know, work on some other events. So they don't say no to those type of things because one, they want to see what you do first, so that's your invite to allow them to see that. And then you're starting the conversation of offering them something before you actually ask them for something, and then it can turn into an actual long-term partnership with you. I started Prestige Concepts, my first company, as a side venture. I was working full-time doing payroll, and you know, Prestige wasn't paying enough, so I was doing it part-time. And it was difficult because you're definitely in your job throughout those hours, and I'm like sneaking off and sending an email, you know, to a client, or it's after school and it's weekends, or after school, after work, and it's weekends, and it's just how bad do you want it. And then when the opportunity presented itself for me to go full-time, because I maintained my clients and I was consistent enough to get back to them, email to them. They knew that I did other things. They knew it wasn't a secret that I had another job. And so the transition to full-time was definitely difficult, but it was fun at the same time because like the next morning when it was, you know, after my last day at payroll, I was like, oh, I didn't have to wake up at 7 a.m. To get to work. But I still had to have that discipline to like, okay, you can't sleep in, you're working for yourself, you don't have a 2-week check coming in. So you still have to maintain that discipline that you may not have to wake up at 7, but you still should wake up at 7 if you want to make sure that you are closing clients and following up with clients, because now you don't have the structure of a job to say, be at this time, you have lunch at this time, you get off at this time. So it's more structured to be an entrepreneur than it is to work at a job, because it's easier to sometimes be at a job to kind of do your own thing. But you can definitely do both. And I started, like I said, last night, you know, I was a bartender. I thought I was going to work at a bar for a minute. You know, I was a waitress, admin, events, payroll. I've done so many different things to figure out what it is that I'm good at, what it is that I like, and what it is I don't like. And I hated working at restaurants, but those are the normal jobs you get when you're young. And then once I got I went to bartending school, got my bartending license. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. So that was pretty good money because, you know, it was just cash and tips and all that. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do this that long. So we used to bouncing around to a bunch of jobs. Like what I loved was events, what I loved was marketing, what I loved was doing websites. So then I just switched over once I ended that full-time job. And then I've been full-time ever since, so let me see what else. Yes.
I have a question. You mentioned before that a lot of tech startups and entrepreneurs are terrible at selling their products. But what are common mistakes you see with that, or common flaws, or what do they do wrong?
So you have a lot of developers on one team, and you don't have a lot of marketers or PR people. So I would say when you want to be in technology, there's so many different roles that you can be. You don't always have to be the coder, the developer, the engineer in a tech team, because they need it all. You have a lot of developers that can build almost anything, but they're not necessarily building it for people. They're building it for themselves because they can. So then they have a lot of products that are just sitting there and not being sold, and they don't know how to sell it to people because they've been in front of their computer for so long. They don't know how to talk to people outside of their computer. And then they forget to dress up, they forget to engage with people. So a lot of common mistakes is, one, you're building something you're not sure if people want yet because you haven't talked to nobody. Two, you have to know people to build for people. So you have to engage and be interactive with them and have a personality. And if you don't have that, make sure you have somebody on your team that can sell, that is good at sales, that's good at marketing, that's good at the brand of the company. Because you have a lot of products that fail regardless if they're good or not, but because the team didn't know how to attract advisors, attract partners, or maintain customers, because you didn't get them excited about it. You was excited when you built it, but you didn't help those people be excited about it because you didn't market it correctly. So it's all about personal engagement. That if you're not that person on your team to do that, find somebody else that can.